Is Japan getting a nuclear weapon a red line for China?
I'd say so, yes. There have been probably in excess of 100 informal apologies for what Japan did during the Second World War. Many of them from low ranking soldiers, some of them from senior officers, one even from a prime minister, but there has never been a formal country to country apology.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what makes China so angry, because all they want is for Japan to recognize that they did very evil things and say, we won't do that again. Now, what's unfortunately happening right now is that as a result of Takaichi's comments a little while ago, her popularity has soared. Now, what
Yes.
does that mean? What
Yes.
does that mean when you're looking at Japan, a country that has been, now, a few years ago, maybe 25 years ago, Japan, maybe 30 years ago, Japan had the GDP of almost the entire continent of Asia. Japan, one small country, had a similar GDP to the entire continent of Asia. Now, China has provinces and cities with the GDP of Japan. So you've got this situation where the tide has completely turned. And Japanese people are angry. Understandably, they were. I remember living in Australia in the 1980s and 1990s, and we were inundated with Japanese tourists. Now, that wasn't a bad thing because they were bringing lots and lots of money, but in some respects, it caused for me living in Brisbane, and every time I went to the Gold Coast, there were shops I couldn't even go in because they only served Japanese customers. And I felt that was a bit off. Well, now there's the same thing is applying to Chinese customers, which is also a bit off. But the Japanese had some resentment back then. But that was how rich they were. They came across for long weekends to play golf. And I didn't play golf, but a few friends of mine who did said, I can't afford to play golf anymore because the prices have just gone up so high because it's full of Japanese business people. They come down and play golf. They owned half the golf courses in Queensland. They were just flying down. It's like a 9-hour flight. They come down on a Friday and go home on a Monday and play golf for 2 days. They go to the Gold Coast mostly, but also Cairns and Townsville, which are a bit nearer to Japan. They're like 3 hours flight north of Brisbane. So they were doing this then. They were a really, really rich, comfortable country. And now they're going through recession. They've got huge debts. They've got unemployment problems. They've got demographic problems. And what's happened is exactly the same as during the period between the First and Second World War. Germany went through all of this, and it created a resurgence which came Nazism, the National Socialist government. They elected Adolf Hitler. He did a fantastic job of rebuilding the country, rebuilding the economy, rebuilding the military, and then went. So you can see why China, looking at history, is saying we do not want this situation to exist. There is a China. The United Nations has it. The Japanese constitution has it, and it says they will never do this. They will never have weapons. But now it looks like not only are they asking for them, but a very large proportion of their population is saying, yes, we want them. We're going to get them. And that is the most worrying aspect of all to millions and millions of Chinese people, because they remember. I mean, there's a lot of negativity about this at the moment. You know, why won't Chinese just get on with the rest of their lives and forget it? Well, they can't forget it because there hasn't been a formal, and that formal apology, country to country level, will be enough. Like the Germans did to the Jewish population, we will never do this again. We acknowledge this was bad. And that's what Japan needs to do. So just one prime minister who says it when he's finished his office, or a former soldier who used to behead people for fun during the occupation of China, these guys, they've come back and they have apologized. So the Chinese people don't have a problem with Japanese people. But China has a problem with Japan because of that. And I see that as a huge, huge turning point. Until the day that Japan says, we did do that, and we're sorry, and we're going to put it into our school books, and we're going to teach it in our history lessons, so that it never happens again, Because what they're doing now is whitewashing it. Did you know that Japan invaded Pearl Harbor and China and Singapore and Malaysia and Burma and Thailand? Do you know they invaded all of them in order to free Asians from Western imperialism? That's what they're teaching. And now they're saying the biggest problem was they lost. And you can see tweets like this, and they're getting like 5 million views and 100,000 likes. Now, this is the worrying thing, because it's not a simple case of, they're talking about this. There is a resurgence of a very horrible situation, which did happen 75, 80 years ago, and no one in the world wants this to happen again. And it's not gonna go away until Japan says, yes, we did do that. Here's the history books, and this is what we did, and we'll never do it again. Until such time as they do that, many Chinese people believe that they've just whitewashed it, and they are very, very in fear of Japan doing it again. If I was Australia, I'd be more worried about Japan than I'm worried about China. Much more worried. If I am Australian, but if I was Australia, the country, and Australia's government came to me for advice, I'd say, watch out for Japan. Until such time as they recognize their history, they will repeat it. Or they might.
That is obviously the concern with China, that Japan is effectively going in a bad direction, with the large part of the population agreeing with that bad, with a certain historical context.
Her popularity rating, just a popularity survey, went up to 85%. So when you get a government with 85% popularity, that's pretty serious. That's a good government in theory. China has 90%. But China's not threatening to go to war with anyone, and never has. It has a 90% the government has a 90% approval rating. And this is not from me. This is Harvard University. This is the Edelman Trust Barometer. This is Berkeley, California University. These are serious academic institutions that have researched this, and they say this. I don't say this. I just cite the people who do say it. But I happen to know, when I walk out in the streets and I'm talking to people in China, that the people I know in China and the people I meet in China are, generally speaking, happy with their government and the way the government treats them. That's a generality, but the fact is it's borne out by academic studies. So when you've got an 85% survey that says she's a popular leader, and she's saying she wants to rearm, remilitarize, and add nukes to the equation, then you should start worrying.
Wow. That is disconcerting. Yeah. And this is where we get into the whole red line stuff, that this is not going to be allowed to happen.
There's another aspect to this which a lot of people don't realize. Do you know who Japan's closest neighbor is?
Yeah, I would imagine it's going, I'm trying to think of it on the map. So you have Japan. Above Japan, you have South Korea, if I'm not mistaken. Or am I wrong on this?
1 kilometer from the northernmost island of Japan is the southernmost island of eastern Russia. Russia is Japan's nearest neighbor. So when Japan talks about remilitarizing, Russia starts to worry, as much as China worries, as much as South Korea worries, as much as North Korea will be worried about it too. North Korea won't give a shit. They'll just bomb them anyway by the sounds of things. So I think maybe they'll take the pressure off all of us. But that's the humorous side of it. It's quite serious. But I do believe North Korea wouldn't have any of the qualms that China has or any other country has. They'll just say, well, if you're going to threaten us, bang. So Russia is the closest neighbor to Japan. And a lot of people don't realize that. The southernmost island of the east of Russia, if you go all the way across Russia, it ends up in China, around the Heilongjiang area. And the southernmost island off the tip of that end of Russia is only either 1 kilometer or 1 mile away from the northernmost island of the Japanese, what do you call that? It's not a peninsula, it's not an isthmus, I can't remember what you call it, but the archipelago of Japan. Mm-hmm.
Well, Russia has already made a point of saying this is outlandish, that this can't happen. Obviously, both of these countries were victors in the Second World War and had to beat back Nazism and the fanaticism of Japan. So you can imagine they have some feelings about it. Do
A
you
lot
think
of
this is
people
being
don't realize, sorry, one more thing to add to that. A lot of people don't realize this. Russia and Japan were at war before
before
China
the
and
war?
Japan were at
That's
war,
right.
but they were at war in China. The British named Port Arthur was taken by the Japanese from the Russians, and as a result of the war that took place then, or the battles that took place then, the Treaty of Shimonoseki was signed in the city of Shimonoseki by the Americans, giving Japan the rights to Taiwan Island. This is how Japan got Taiwan, from defeating Russia in China. No wonder China's got a defensive military. So many people don't know this history that you look at this and go, wow, now I understand. Why does China hate this? Why does Russia hate the Japanese? This is the reason why. It's been going on for hundreds of years, but certainly in the last 150 years, Russia, Japan, China, and many other countries have all had wars over Chinese territory in China.
Do you think the U.S. is pushing this? I mean, part of the plan of retrenchment and pushing "quote unquote" allies out to effectively, let's say, share the burden of world primacy. That this is Japan kind of taking up this mantle in
Yeah,
this region of the globe.
you broke up towards the end of that conversation, that question. But yes, I do believe that the Americans are doing this quite deliberately. It's divisive tactics. So they want to divide the allies they want to combine their allies and divide their enemy. They're currently working very hard to militarize Australia. Now, Australia and Guam are going the bases for the long-range strikes into wherever the war happens to be, whether that be Russia, Japan, or whether that be China, Japan, China, Russia, Japan. I don't know how it's going to work, but that's their thought process. Guam is a great military base for them. It's right there in the middle of the South Pacific, or the Pacific, and it's far enough away that if a bomb hits that, it doesn't kill many Americans. It will kill a lot more local people than the Americans who work on that base. So they're trying to militarize all of these different areas, and then they want those areas. They're currently they're getting Japan and Australia to work in tandem militarily. So they're acting on activities together. They're doing exercises, military exercises together. So yeah, I think they're basically outsourcing. Subcontracting is the word I like to use. Their military, their future military, in the same way that they subcontracted this to Ukraine. We want to delay the Russians. We want to stall their economy. We want to make them weaker militarily. And the best way we can do that is to get NATO, of which we are the major component, we'll get NATO to pay for it. And now they've backed off. And they're saying to Europe, it's up to you, Europe. This is not our war. Marco Rubio actually said that. Well, that's not our war. It's on a different continent. As if Venezuela wasn't a different continent, but it's our hemisphere now. So they just pick and choose. The hypocrisy is unreal. But that's not our war because it's on a different continent. Although we put the puppet government in, we made it happen. We created NATO so that this could be done. We expanded NATO all the way around, and now it's Europeans' war. So you get on with it. So they're basically subcontracting. Now, what I hope happens is Japan, the Philippines, South Korea, Australia, even Guam and the other islands in the South Pacific, who are all being militarized. There was a great thing the other day. China took a 70-year-old airstrip on an island somewhere in the South Pacific, and they renovated it so the 800 occupants of that island could use light planes to get to and from other islands. Now China could militarize that island. What? We're talking about an airstrip that belonged to World War II and is no bigger than the size of the freeway outside my house. It's not an airstrip at all. It's a road. It's a concrete road. China has rebuilt it, resurfaced it, and now people can fly in and out of that island, and it will boost tourism to that island because you can fly into wherever the nearest airport is, Fiji, Nauru, where I don't know. But you can fly in there, and then you can take an island hopper and get to this island. And that's going to boost the economy for the 800 people who live there. But of course, America is really angry about this, and they say it could be used for China's military. No, it couldn't. China's military, the only thing that's got a long enough range to reach there, couldn't possibly land on this. But that's logic. Logic doesn't apply in this. So this is what they're doing. They have militarized the South Pacific. They've militarized the Central Pacific. They're militarizing Australia. They're militarizing Southeast Asia. The Thailand-Burma thing is also them militarizing. And it's all going on because America wants to encircle China, put a ring around China. They want Mongolia as well. They want Kazakhstan. They want Uzbekistan. They're working on Pakistan at the moment. These are all, China is bordered by 17 countries in that region. And this is where China, if it is ever blockaded by sea, will be shipping all of its containers by train across to Europe, Eurasia, and the rest of the world, basically. So pretty much anything can get out of China by train. It's faster, but of course a train can only take 50 or 60 or maybe 100 containers, whereas a ship can take 10,000 containers.
Right.
I don't know what the numbers are, but a lot.
I got to be honest. Why does China even care what the U.S. thinks or what they say? I mean, we have, 800, 900 military bases around the world. Mm-hmm. As you pointed out, the U.S. is effectively militarily surrounding China and doing their damnedest to do so. And the National Defense Authorization Act that just passed, it was the largest budget to Taiwan, from my understanding, that has ever gone to Taiwan. So there's this province that's part of China that the United States is effectively militarizing and sending a huge amount of money to militarize. And the U.S. is complaining about China.
Did you ask why does China care?
Yes.
That island
basically,
belongs to China. The people of that island are Chinese. Now, they
No. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, why? No, go ahead. I was going to say that's not where I was going with it. I was asking in the sense of
the people of Taiwan may not agree with the Communist Party, but they are Chinese. Your turn.
No, I accept that. What I mean is, why does it's almost like if somebody is they're complaining, and yet they're radical hypocrites. I'm going to care less about their complaints. So it's like, okay, you're militarily surrounding me. You have weapon systems in all of these countries. You're trying to make deals with these countries in order to block me out in regards to trade. And you've been putting money and weapons into a province of China for people that are Chinese. And you are complaining that we have an airstrip that is not even a military base. I'm asking why does China care? Not in the sense of why do they care about the Taiwanese? I'm asking why do they care about America's
in that respect, China doesn't care. China doesn't care what America says. China is very concerned about what America does. And that's a very different story. Now, what America actually does to China is very little. America comes to China because it knows. Now, if we go back to 2008, China helped America out enormously by buying its U.S. Treasury debts, and it went up to $1.3 trillion. Now it's $800 billion. Still a lot of money. But they've divested themselves of that so they could buy more gold, and that gold is going in to support Enbridge, which is a currency, digital currency that BRICS are using, and China, or the Bank of China, People's Bank of China supports, but it's based in Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, and somewhere in the Middle East, UAE, I think, but not certain on that. So anyway, China doesn't really care what America says. It absolutely cares what America does. And America comes begging with cap in hand. And we've seen this in the last two administrations where America comes along and says, everything is good, everything's constructive. And then they go away and then they do something very different. And Macron did the same thing for Europe. He came across and he had a great meeting with Xi Jingping. They did stuff together, lots of photo opportunities. And then he went back and said, China's got to stop doing this, stop doing that, and turned it around. So it's really not about what they say, because what they say means nothing. What they do means everything. And what America does will dictate how China reacts. Now, the next thing that I perceive happening is going to be Scott Bessent complaining because China did not buy 12 million tons of soybeans.
Oh, soybeans. I thought it was wheat for some reason.
No, soybeans. But they never said that. Wheat was a few years ago. It was in the last Trump administration.
Okay.
But what happened was they came away from this meeting and said China has agreed to buy 12 million tons, 120 million tons, no, 12 million tons this year and 15 million tons next year, and for the next 3 years, 15 million tons a year. Now, okay, that's a lot of soybeans, but China has already got a stockpile of soybeans because during this upset period where they weren't trading with each other, China bought soybeans from Argentina, from Brazil, from Australia, from a few other places, and it's now got all the soybeans it needs. And then it bought like $300,000 worth of soybeans. That's probably one shipload of soybeans came from America to China. So they haven't. So now the soybean farmers are going to go to Scott Bessent and say, you told us, and he's going to say China lied. The next thing is China did not, unequivocally, did not say that they would relax restrictions on rare earth elements. They said they would relax restrictions that they imposed on October the 7th for 12 months.
Right.
But all the previous restrictions, which are the real ones on rare earth elements, have never been restricted, have never been changed. They aren't being lifted. So the next thing is when these weapons manufacturers and car dealers and stuff say, well, we're supposed to be getting rare earth elements to make our shit. China's going to say, well, no, we told you have to apply and you have to prove that it's for peaceful purposes, and then we'll sell it to you. Until you do that, we're not selling it. It's registered now. It's controlled. So you need to be a registered buyer, a registered user, and you need to be producing products that we can see before we sell you more. That's the way it works. They now have a whole office in Beijing dedicated to this, and every single port has people trained in how to prevent rare earth elements getting out of the country without proper paperwork. So that's the way China has changed. And they've done all of that. They've been doing it since 2015, but they've done most of this in the last 12 to 18 months. And then Scott Bessent came out of a meeting in early December or late November saying, oh, they've decided that they're going to hold off on doing this for 12 months. They haven't. So rare earth elements are not going to be shipped unless they are approved, registered, licensed, and shipped to an authorized buyer until those processes have been taking place. So Scott Bessent is going to start lying now to the American public and saying China's reneged on the deal that they made when we sat down and talked to them in Malaysia, and reneged on the deal that they made when they shook hands in Busan in South Korea. So China has never made these deals. Scott Bessent announced that they had. China never did. So China's just going to say, well, you're wrong. You made a mistake there. But they know it's lies. It's not a mistake. So no, I think China is going to just handle this in the way that it always does, peacefully, calmly, rationally. And then when faced with decisions, they will make decisions that actually hurt America, as opposed to hurting the rest of the world.
Jerry, fantastic breakdown. Always great breakdown, and I always appreciate you for giving this breakdown. Jerry Gray, he is host of Jerry's Take on China. He has lived there for more than 20 years, has traveled more than 40,000 kilometers by bike across the country, and I think it's more than 30 years at this point.
No, it's 21 years I've lived here.
Okay, so it is 21 years, but it's more than 40,000 kilometers.
Yeah, about 40,000 kilometers on bikes around China. So I'm getting to know the place. I'm planning my next ride we're going to fly up to Hohhot in Inner Mongolia and ride across central China back to Guangdong. We rode to Mongolia just 6 months ago, finished in June. We're going to do a different route through we went in a straight line, kind of up through the center. We're going to come back via the western through Ningxia, Gansu, Qinghai, and then into Sichuan, which is kind of central China, and then back down. So it'll be like a 6 or 8 week journey. That's the next one.
Oh, you're going to be on a bicycle for 6 to 8 weeks.
So it's what I do for fun.
Wow. Just wow. I am not doing enough with my life when I hear stuff like that. But Jerry, man, thank you for this. You have a good night, okay?
Thank you very much, and thank you once again to your audience. Some good points coming up. I can see them. Thank you.
Absolutely. Be safe.
Oh, and Merry Christmas.
And thank you. Merry Christmas back at you. I know, like you said, you guys celebrating winter solstice, but still, I still offer Merry Christmas to whoever.
Cheers.
Like I said, I like the holidays. Be safe, man. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye. Shut out the jury. Shut out